welcome back. Good morning to you. We got on the line the president of the Family Council, Jerry Cox, is with us. You can find out more at familycouncil.org. Jerry, how are you this morning?
Well, I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm glad that you had time to come on, and I wanted to talk about this subject. I know you did too. Trans athletes posting victories, shaking up sports. This is an article from Wired magazine. Transgender athletes at all levels of sport are winning medals, spurring a contentious debate over the future of gendered competition. You're following this cultural phenomenon, aren't you?
It's more like a cultural train wreck, I'm afraid. But yes, it is a phenomenon. But yeah, it's just more nonsense. And I think everybody recognizes this. If you let boys, men, compete against girls or women, the guys are going to have a huge advantage. I mean, everybody knows that men are bigger, stronger, faster as a whole than women are. And so some of these social engineering people out here are now saying, well, if a guy feels like he's a girl, he ought to be able to run track with the girls' track team in high school. And that's just ridiculous.
I understand in about a dozen states, boys can compete in girls' athletics by declaring themselves to be transgendered, but some schools require the participant to be engaged in some type of gender reassignment. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, obviously, gender reassignment is a really bad solution to gender dysphoria. I guess there have always been some people who had questions about their sexual orientation, their gender, and that sort of thing. And in years past, it was recognized as something that you try to get help for, and hopefully you were able to get past it, recover from it, and move on. In the modern era that we're in now, in some states, it's illegal to help people, quote, get over their gender dysphoria. Not that way here in Arkansas. A person can still get help, but in some places it's illegal. And so they've taken it the extra step now where, and you don't know for sure what the real motive of some of these boys is, but you have high school boys now who are coming out and saying, you know what, I'm a girl, I'm a transgender person, I want to compete on the girls' track team. And so you may recall that during the Obama administration, there was a directive from the Department of Education, I believe it was, that said that you have to allow those transgender athletes to be able to shower with the girls, allow them to dress with the girls, use the same restroom facilities as the girls in your high school. And that created a huge backlash. And so when Donald Trump got elected president, the administration has reversed that, but now it's left up to the schools and state laws around the country. And as you pointed out earlier, there are probably a dozen or so states where at some level, boys, can compete against girls in athletics in high school.
Do you find this, we're talking with Jerry Cox, the president of the Family Council, do you find this kind of a reversal of what might be considered, a policy goal of the left, a couple of decades ago? This idea of Title IX, this idea of, okay, if you have, men's basketball, you need to have women's basketball. If you have baseball, you need to have softball. I mean, this used to be clearly, it was about equality and giving women the opportunity to compete in athletics against other women, just like men have that opportunity. But if you take their ideas now to their logical conclusions, why is there any separation at all between the two,
Well, and see, you make an excellent point because, back in the 70s, and I can remember, being in high school in the late 60s and graduated high school in 1970 when there was not this equality between male and female sports in high school. You'd have a lot of opportunities for boys to play football and baseball and run track and do the other things, but the girls really didn't have much. And so Title IX came along in 1972, and rightfully so. It was designed to give girls some of the same opportunities that boys had to do sports. And so then you had schools doing girls basketball, girls track, softball, on and on. You know, now it's all pretty equal, I think. And so, but what you have now is you have the feminists in a real bind, because they've said women are just as good as men, and women need to be able to do whatever men do, and so forth and so on. We know the line. And so now that these transgender athletes have come along and said, well, we're boys, we're going to compete against the girls and take the opportunities from the girls, now the feminists are in a real bind, and some are saying, that's unfair to put a guy out there running against the girls or competing against the girls. And others are kind of swallowing the bitter pill and saying, well, I guess we have to, do it in the name of equality. And, it's created a split, really, among the feminists. But see, here's what's at the bottom of all this, or the end of all this. You have young girls out here who work extremely hard, work just as hard as the boys do to be good at track or softball or basketball or volleyball or whatever it is. They work as hard as the boys do. And then you have a boy coming along saying, I think I'm going to put a wig. And literally, we had some guys up in Connecticut that put on a wig and ran against the girls, kind of making fun of them. And they beat them. And that's unfair to those girls to treat them that way, or create an environment where they're treated that way, because a lot of these girls want to get a scholarship to go to college. They want to play volleyball. They want to play basketball. They want to play soccer or softball. And if you have boys winning all the championships, that puts girls on the bench, and they probably don't get a scholarship then, and they don't get their education paid for, and they don't have the same equal shot that guys do who are elite athletes and want to run track or play football or whatever it is they do.
You already mentioned this, but I want to go down the list just because any chance we need these are politically these are politically incorrect facts. Okay, generally, men have more muscle mass. Men are stronger and faster than women. Women have more endurance and faster muscle recovery time. Men have thicker bones. Men have more red blood cells to carry oxygen. Women have more estrogen, leading to more body fat. Men have greater lung capacity. Men are physically larger than women. Also, elite male and female athletes are better now than in the past, but the difference between male and female athletes has remained a constant. Now, if you go over to what you mentioned, Jerry, over in Connecticut, there is the Alliance Defending Freedom. What are they doing in this discrimination complaint about Title IX?
Well, I just got back from a conference in Phoenix with the Alliance Defending Freedom, and they had one of the young ladies that is in the center of the complaint in Connecticut came in with her mother and spoke to those of us that were at the conference, and it was just great. Just hearing this girl's story, but also really made me sad that this young girl is an elite high school track star. She's great in the 100 meter, the 200 meter, and the 400 meter runs. And you have these boys coming in, and I'll just use the word stealing that from her. And they were talking about the fact that this violates Title IX, because Title IX was designed to create equality for girls to be able to do sports and win and be elite in their division and so forth. And this turns all that on its head when you let guys come in there. And so I'm with them. I hope that they win this complaint against the Department of Education, and that they're able to change that back the way it should be, because what this does, it upends about 50 years of advancements that women and girls have made to be able to play sports and to be elite in their field against other girls, other women, and it just turns all that on its head. And so, Paul, I was thinking about this. even here in Arkansas, we have different divisions for boys and girls athletics so that it gives kids in small schools a chance to be winners. And that's okay, because I grew up in one of those little bitty schools. There were 30-something people in my graduating class, and we competed in the small school division in football. Well, there's no way our football team with 30 kids on it could come up here to Little Rock and compete against one of the big city schools. And so we were in a small division, and we got to play and win and all that. And I think we lose sight of what athletics is supposed to be about. It's about character. It's about sportsmanship. It's about all those things. And now we've made it about a bunch of guys getting out here and putting on makeup and a wig and acting like girls. And as I said, kind of making fun of the girls because they have an inherent advantage.
We're talking again with Jerry Cox, president of the Family Council. These are, very much cultural issues affecting our country. And they are, if they're not already, Jerry, they're going to affect Arkansas. And that's where I feel like the General Assembly can come in and try to prevent this from ever even being a problem by passing some new legislation. Do you think there's stuff out there we could do to prevent what we see happening in these other states?
Well, certainly we need to learn from these other states and say, you know what, not here, not on our watch are we going to let girls be mistreated this way. And so, Paul, I hate to say it, but we've tried a couple of legislative sessions already to say that you can't have boys in the girls' locker room and boys in the girls' changing room and boys in the girls' bathrooms and all that. And we've just hit a brick wall out at the legislature on that. And, I want us to come back and make another run at that, because what dad or mom wants a boy standing in the girls' locker room gawking at their daughter? I mean, that's just ridiculous. And it doesn't have to be that way. And right now, that's open as a possibility here in Arkansas. And because there's no law against it. And so that's open. And all you need is one outside-the-box person, family out here that says, I want my boy to be able to dress with the girls, compete with the girls. He's transgendered. And we're off and running with the very same thing that they've got up in Connecticut and some of these other places. And so you're right. Our leaders need to step up and do something about this to be sure that it does not happen here.
And I certainly hope, I hope that they will, and they need to know, groups like yours, and I mean, the people of Arkansas, I think in general, will support them. I mean, they really will, and people see this as being just a huge. I think it's just a huge sign. I would liken it to what on the abortion issue. It was a very positive thing when you had states like Virginia and New York passing these pro-abortion laws up to 9 months, and then the governor said maybe even outside of the womb. And yet our state, the time that was happening, our state was passing pro-life laws. We were doing we were saying, no, our culture in Arkansas is going to be one that respects life. Our culture is going to be going on a clearly different path here. And I feel like the legislature should apply that same conviction to these issues that are facing our country when it comes to girls and guys and transgenderism,
Yeah. Well, and as you pointed out, the people of Arkansas see this for what it is. If you walked out here on the street right now and you stopped 100 people and you talked about this situation to 100 people, I dare say over 90 of them would say, no, we shouldn't have transgender boys over here in the girls' locker room, and we shouldn't have them out here running around the track or playing basketball or doing whatever and beating the girls because they have an inherent advantage. I spoke with an athletics expert yesterday, and he said, on average, men and boys have about a 30% advantage over women and girls when it comes to athletics. Now, you'll always find women who can outperform men, outrun men, and all that. But I'm talking about if you took all the men in the world and all the women in the world, the men have about a 30% advantage when it comes to strength and athleticism and all that. And that's not rocket science. We all know that. I can remember when I was in high school, the leading free throw shooter in our school was about a 5-foot tall girl. But if you put her out there playing basketball against the boys, she'd get killed because she's 5 feet tall, and she just can't compete at that level. And it doesn't diminish or demean women to say that. It's just that God made us uniquely, wonderfully different in our own ways. And, so in no way is this to put down women in any way. And, I think they ought to be able to compete as much as they can. And as I pointed out earlier, women athletes are getting faster, stronger, but so are the men. Mm-hmm. And so the difference between the two really hasn't changed much in the last 30 years. The men are getting better and the women are getting better. But I don't care how much you let women train, they just can't make up that 30% in most cases out there on average.
Yeah. Jerry, you make excellent points, sir, and I appreciate you spending some time with us this morning. It's always great to talk to you.
Well, it's always good to visit with you, and I'm sure we'll have other strange things to talk about later on.
I think we will. Hey, and if I don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Okay, same to you.
All righty, folks, we're going to take a break.